Hello guys, this is your friend Dark Fox Sage. And we are back with our new fanfic, which is, what if Naruto and Yugao were in a secret relationship after the genin exam? Part 2. And if you enjoy this fanfic, then subscribe to the channel and like the video, it motivates me to upload more fanfics like these for you all. Now let's start the fanfic. Academy. Where are you, Naruto? Asuhi thought, standing in front of the classroom, which began around 10 minutes ago. Alright class, pull out your TET books so we can go over the things that will be on the test next week, Asuhi announced to the class. Sensei, I thought you were supposed to get an A student today, Yugao asked Asuhi, waiting for an answer. Asuhi contemplated whether or not to tell the claw that Naruto is not here yet. The new student is not here yet, so we will continue the day's lessons until he arrives. Then in which case the day shall change slightly after that, Asuhi-sensei explained. Why would the schedule change due to a new student? Wouldn't it stay the same and the new student would start where we left off as well? Yugao asks, while most of the class agreed to the statement. The reason the schedule will change is if the new student that is coming into this class has not caught up with you guys yet, Asuhi says to the confused class. Yugao and most of the class look at Asuhi-sensei beyond confused. What do you mean, Asuhi-sensei? A random student in the front row of the class asked, knowing most of them wanted an answer. The student who is entering our class today is only 4 years old, that's why I'm waiting for him to get here to find out if he caught up with you guys or not, Asuhi-sensei said, watching the class's eyes widen from being told a 4-year-old is being placed in their class. That's when some of the class erupted into angry shouts and some just stayed quiet, wondering why they would let a 4-year-old even in the academy, especially into their class, which is already in their 4th year. Why is a 4-year-old coming into our class and even coming into the academy at all, for that matter? Don't you have to be 6 to even become a 1st year? Yugao asks Asuhi, clearly confused on the matter. A lot of the class just nod with Yugao's question. Well, in most cases you have to wait till you're 6 to enter into the academy, but the Hokage enrolled him into this class knowing Naruto better than anyone else, so treat him nicely when he arrives. He might be more than you expect him to be, especially from a 4-year-old, Asuhi explained to Yugao and to the class, knowing how mean kids can be sometimes. Now who can tell me, in a situation where you're surrounded by 2 IWA ninja, what type of weapon would be better, a kunai or a shuriken? Asuhi-sensei asked the class. A random student replied with a kunai, because if the rock ninja put rock armor on, it would go further and then a shuriken would. Good answer. That's correct, Asuhi-sensei replied, flipping a page in his book, moving on to the next lesson with the class. Naruto. I'm already 15 minutes late. I got to hurry, Naruto thought, running up to the academy grounds, then flinging the academy doors open, shooting down the hallway. What classroom do I go to? Naruto asks himself, not really sure where to go, so he goes to the teacher lounge, opening the door and heads in. A bunch of Chunin instructors in the room turn to see a 4-year-old walk into the teacher lounge, unsure. Why are you here, kid? This is no place for little kids, a Chunin instructor says, walking up to Naruto, trying to usher him out of the room. He's with me, Matsu said from behind the other Chunin instructor. The Chunin instructor turns and looks at Matsu. Okay then, but you have to talk with him outside in the hall. He is not allowed in here, the Chunin instructor explained to Matsu. Matsu walked around him and led Naruto out of the room into the hall to speak with him. Why are you here, Naruto? Asuhi-sensei was probably expecting you around 15 minutes ago, Matsu asks Naruto. I don't know where the class is, no one told me the room number, so I am kind of lost here, Naruto says, sheepishly scratching the back of his head, hoping Matsu could help tell him the room number. Matsu looked at him, thinking that next time a new student were to come, he would be the one to meet the kid, not Asuhi. Alright then, Naruto, the room number is 27, you ran past it on your way here, Matsu says, laughing lightly at Naruto's face. Thanks, Naruto shouts, starting to run down the hallway to room 27. Wait, Naruto, I'm your other sensei, Matsu, I'll be teaching your class in the afternoon after Asuhi-sensei finishes up, so see you later, kid, Matsu shouts at Naruto down the hall. Naruto brings his arm up to show that he heard and kept going. He slowed down once he saw the room number coming up. He stops in front of the door and looks at the door nervously, unsure before he then, putting on a smile to look confident, and pushed open the door slowly for dramatic effect for the rest of the class. Asuhi-sensei turned toward the door, hearing it creak and start to open slowly to slow for his taste, so Asuhi walked forward, grabbing the handle of the door and flung the door open, making Naruto, who was opening the door, to stumble into the classroom. Not ready for the door to open like that, Naruto looks up when he finally righted himself and saw the whole class staring at him, some with angry looks and some looked like they didn't really care. Naruto, what took you so long to get here? You should have been here around 20 minutes ago, Asuhi-sensei asked, shutting the classroom door, walking to the front of the class. I got here 15 minutes late because I was sparring with Kakashi-sensei, but when I got here I didn't know where to go because you forgot to tell me a room number. Samatsu told me the room number, Naruto explained to Asuhi, while the class was too quiet. Asuhi smacks himself in the forehead for such a blunder on his part, but realized Naruto just said he sparred with Kakashi, making his eyes go wide. Wait, are you talking about Kakashi Hatake? Asuhi-sensei asks Naruto. Yep. I was sparring with him from 4 to 7 in the morning, and that's why I was late. He has been my sensei for the past 2 weeks so that I could catch up to your class. He probably used me for an excuse for being late to me his team as well, Naruto says. Haha, yeah right. Like someone of that caliber would teach a 4-year-old brat like yourself, a random student from the front row of the class said. Naruto turned to him, sticking his tongue out at him. I know you're jealous, so don't say something you don't mean, you fag-looking idiot, Naruto replied, smiling. The kid jumped forward over his desk to try and strangle the little kid, but Asuhi-sensei grabbed the kid by the top of his shirt and lifted him off the ground. Now don't be attacking fellow classmates, unless in a spar, and even then during a spar. The spar will be a fair and nice fight, not trying to kill the other, Asuhi explains, putting the kid back in his seat, who grumbled for not getting the chance to strangle Naruto. While this is going on, Yugao in the back row was staring wide-eyed because realizing that this is that kid who ran into her before. When I said maybe we will see each other around that day, I didn't think something like this would be happening, Yugao thought to herself. Yugao looked at her fellow classmates, seeing that most of them were angry because Naruto would be in their class, but she got up out of her seat seeing Naruto talking to Asuhi about if he caught up with the class yet, and Naruto replied yes, so Yugao walked up to them. Hey Naruto, how have you been? Yugao asks, walking up to him. Naruto turns and looks at her, smiling with a little blush on his. He's really cute. I didn't realize that before he ran into me, Yugao thought, gaining a light blush herself. Oh, hey Yugao, I have been good, how you have been? It's nice to see you in this class too, Naruto says, trying to hide his blush from her, while scratching the back of his head. I'm really good, Naruto. I didn't know that you would be the one coming into the class, and I still can't believe you're younger than us by 6 years old. Do you think you can handle it? Yugao asked Naruto, a concerned look on her face. I'll be fine, Yugao. You don't know everything about me. I'll show you how strong I am, Naruto says, determined to prove it her the most, but also prove it to the class as well. Asuhi just stares at the two of them, who were interacting with each other really well. Just ask me for help if you need it then. Okay Naruto, Yugao says, smiling while walking back to her seat so that Asuhi can introduce Naruto to the class. I'll do that, thanks Yugao, Naruto says, smiling, while some of the boys in the class grew even angrier at the interaction between Naruto and Yugao, but Naruto didn't let it bother him, he just ignored them. Naruto, go ahead and introduce yourself to the class, then they will do the same for you once you are done with your introduction, Asuhi-sensei explained. Yes sensei, my name is Naruto Uzumaki, my likes are training and practicing my kenjutsu, my hobbies are finding new ways to improvise my fighting, and training, I don't really hate anything besides the people who can't look underneath the underneath, and my dream is to be the best ninja ever, Naruto says to the class, pumping his fist into the air. The class starts to introduce themselves one by one. Once it got to Yugao, she stood up. My name is Yugao Azuki. My likes include kenjutsu and hanging out with friends. My hobbies are training in my family sword techniques and friends. I dislike people who don't put much effort into being a ninja, like fangirls. They don't deserve to be a ninja. My dream is to be the best kenjutsu master, Yugao says, sitting back down, while Naruto's eyes are wide from the kenjutsu part. She's nice and pretty and likes kenjutsu just like me. She's amazing, Naruto thought to himself. When Yugao was done, Naruto started to look at all the faces of the people in the room. Most of them looked angry, but another person stands up with no malice against him, introducing himself like Yugao. My name is Neo Terumi. My likes are hanging with friends and coming to class. My hobbies are training and trying different weapons out. My dislikes are when people make fun of me or making fun of someone else. My dream is to be a hunter ninja, Neo says, sitting down afterwards. So about 4 or 5 people total don't mind me in the room. Well, at least Yugao and Neo will be good people to get to know better. Still, though, I am going to change their views on me before I graduate from the academy, Naruto thought, determined to show what he was made of. Naruto was broken out of his thoughts when Asuhi-sensei turned to him and asked him where he would like to sit. Naruto started to look around the room to find a good seat but stopped looking around when he heard a voice. Naruto, you can sit here if you want, Yugao says from the back row, pointing to the seat by her. Thanks, Yugao, Naruto says, happily walking to the back and taking the seat beside her. No problem, Naruto. I finally found someone interesting to talk to, Yugao says to Naruto, in which he turns his head forward to the front, trying to hide a blush that appeared on his face. They turn and look at Asuhi, who just started the net lesson. Alright class, since Naruto does not need any time to catch up, we will start where we left off, Asuhi states, walking up to Naruto and handing him a textbook so he can follow along. They continued lessons throughout the morning. Team 6. Team 6 just exited the Hokage Tower, heading towards a civilian house which they were to paint a fence for some old guy for their 10th D-ranked mission. They arrived at the house all grumbling on high. Did they have to do chores? They were ninja. Sensei, do we have to do this? Jin asked, picking up a brush, grudgingly not wanting to do it. Yes you do, and you can't stop till you are done, because even though these missions seem pointless, but they're not. They still help pay for things in the village and I don't have to do it, so have fun, she says, jumping into a big tree in the yard to get some sleep till they were done with the job. That's no fair, Sensei gets to sleep where we end up doing all the work, Jin says, starting to paint the fence. Don't worry, Jin, let's just get to work and finish this as fast as we can so we can be done for the day, Hayate says, looking at Miko for reassurance. Right, Miko? Hayate asks. I guess so, but this still sucks, Miko says, picking up a brush herself and starting to paint the fence. 3 hours later they finished, but Hayate and Jin were covered in paint because they got pissed at each other for not being done yet. We are finally done, Hayate says, sounding exhausted but ready to finish the mission. Yeah, but you two look more painted the fence, and that's saying something, Miko says, laughing. Laugh it up, Jin says, throwing half the bucket of paint into Miko's face. Miko got angry and started to kick Jin in the balls repeatedly for getting the paint in her hair. Hayate just looks on, guarding himself just in case Miko turns on him. She then jumps out of the tree, hearing Jin screaming in pain, and walking up to Miko while pulling her back away from Jin before he makes him unable to have kids. Are you guys finished? She asks them, in which Hayate and Miko nod while Jin lie on the ground in pain. Okay. Then Hayate and Miko meet me in the Hokage Tower in 10 minutes, she says, picking up Jin and taking him to the hospital to get checked on. Once they entered the Hokage Tower, they got their mission pay from the Hokage Ho, then turned to Shi, asking him if he would like his team to do another mission. She just nodded and took a scroll, turning to his team. Okay guys, I got another mission for us. Even without Jin it will get completed, me know it, she states smiling. Is it a C rank this time? Hayate says hopeful. Nope, it's another D rank one, she said laughing, walking out of the Hokage building. Hayate and Miko just turned to each other. No, they both said, walking slowly out of the Hokage building. Naruto. When lunchtime came around, most of the kids stayed away from Naruto. Naruto sat down outside on a bench and began to eat his lunch. Yugao sees this and walks up and sits down next to him, placing her lunch net to her. Don't worry about them, Naruto, they're just jealous that you're only 4 and are in the same class as them, Yugao states, looking at Naruto. I know, Yugao, but I wish they would just get over it. I mean, why make enemies when you can make friends? Naruto says, taking a couple bits out of his sandwich. Yugao looks at him happily in finding someone just as smart as herself, while they both return to eating their lunch together in silence the rest of lunchtime. Once they finished, they headed in along with the rest of the class. When they got seated, Matsu-sensei walked in through the door and stood in the front of the room. Now time for a henge test before we head outside and do sparring for the rest of the time. No, line up and begin, Matsu-sensei says, leaning against his desk. While watching the students come up and get in line, he spots Naruto at the end of the line and waves to him, with Naruto waving back. He turned back, and when everyone were ready, they began the test, one person after another. About half of students failed the test so far. Then Neo walked forward and got a perfect on his test. I'm going to get a perfect just like Neo because I know everything about the henge, Naruto thought, wanting to do the jutsu so bad. Good luck, Yugao, Naruto says to Yugao for encouragement, while Yugao walked forward making a perfect henge of Matsu-sensei, then walking back into line standing near Naruto. Naruto slowly walked forward after being called. Everyone turned towards him, staring at him, thinking that there was no way a 4-year-old was going to pass this test. This is here I start proving that I belong in this upper class than a lower class, Naruto thought, performing the necessary hand signs for the henge. All the students looked on as the smoke cleared from the jutsu, faded, looking as the exact replica of the 4th Hokage. No way, a random student proclaimed, stuttering. They couldn't believe Naruto completed the henge. Then Naruto turned back, dispelling the henge. Good job, Naruto, you pass, Matsu says, writing on his clipboard while telling the students to head outside with him for sparring practice for the rest of the class. Naruto and Yugao walked outside together, talking about random things, trying to pass the time. Once they all got out back on the academy training ground, Matsu turned to them, randomly picking opponents to face off to get good idea on everyone's taijutsu as in what they need to improve on. Naruto, you will be pairing with Kenzie, Matsu says, watching them get into their fighting stances. Matsu-sensei, can I use my sword in this battle, or no? Naruto asks, looking at Matsu. Normally yes, Naruto, but I want to get a good record on all the students' taijutsu so I can see the problems with their taijutsu and help them fix it, Matsu explains, stepping back. Yugao gets closer to the fight. Beat him up, Naruto. He needs a good beating, he is too cocky, so show him that you're better, Yugao says. Naruto just nods and turns to face his opponent, with a flat palm out facing Kenzie and a half fist pulled back, bending both his knees slightly, waiting for Kenzie to come. Naruto did not have to wait long. Kenzie charged forward at him, thinking it will be an easy win for him. All I need is one punch, Kenzie shouts, turning most of the class to their match, thinking Kenzie would. Besides 3 people, they were Yugao, Neo and Matsu, who thought Naruto would win the match. Jumping forward, aiming a punch at Naruto's face, Ho just ducked, making Kenzie's eyes widen. Naruto slammed his half-palm fist into Kenzie's stomach, making him lean forward, before Naruto followed it up by slamming his open palm into Kenzie's chin, sending him flying across the training ground, landing hard on the ground unconscious from being hit like he did. Naruto got a couple cheers, walking over to stand near Yugao. Naruto wins, Matsu says, marking it down on his clipboard. The time of the fight and Ho Naruto ended the fight, telling another teacher to take Kenzie to the school nurse. Naruto and Yugao sit in the grass to talk about things. You did good, Naruto. That fight gave you really good marks, Yugao says, congratulating Naruto on his win. Thanks, Yugao beat the person you face just as good, Naruto says. Don't worry, I will, Yugao says, smirking. Yugao's name was called, then Sashi got up, then waving to Naruto as Yugao walked forward, getting into a stance. She had to fight. Nioho also just got into a stance himself across from Yugao. After 3 minutes of fighting, Yugao was declared the winner by knockout, knocking out Neo with a punch to the solar plexus. When Yugao's match ended, the sounded in the academy indicating class just ended, so everyone started to leave and rush home or greet their parents out front. Good match, Yugao, Naruto says to her while they walk down the road away from the academy together. Thanks, Naruto, but I got to go home now, so see you tomorrow, Yugao says, running off smiling at him. See you tomorrow, Naruto shouts to a now vanishing Yugao, heading home, him tired from the long day. Once he reached his apartment door, he opens the door and turns on the light, dropping off his sword in front of his dresser after closing his door to the apartment. I'm going to take a nice long hot shower, Naruto thought, heading to his kitchen to get a bite to eat first. When he walked through the doorway, a cut appeared on his cheek, then a black cloaked figure jumped down in front of him, making Naruto jump back, slamming his head off the edge of the doorway. What the hell? Naruto thought, scared, thinking someone is trying to kill him, but then the figure grabbed a hold of the side of the cloak. Naruto got more scared, thinking it to be a weapon, until it got pulled away, revealing it to be Kakashi, his sensei. How did you get in and why are you here? Naruto shouts once his fear vanished, standing up. I'm here to tell you. Get your things, it is time for training and don't complain, Kakashi says, chuckling. Naruto got his sword, realizing he had no choice since he knew Kakashi would drag him to training ground 7 if he had to. Okay, let's, Kakashi says, disappearing in a swirl of leaves, heading for training ground 7, leaving a pissed off Naruto. Naruto's eyes widen. Don't leave me here, you stupid sensei, Naruto shouts, opening his apartment door, shutting it behind him, running out into the night. Time skip 2 years later from the start of the academy. Next week I graduate from the academy and finally become a full-fledged ninja, Naruto thought happily in the grass of training ground 7, enjoying the afternoon after getting out of the academy that day. He slowly got up, looking around at the damage he had done on the wooden dummies with his sword. I got to keep training. I cannot let up. I have got to prove myself when I graduate next week, Naruto thought, performing his sword stances that he came up with, but also with some help from Kakashi supervising what he came up with. Team 6. They entered through Konoha's gates, heading towards the Hokage Tower to report that they had completed another C-rank mission. They took their time walking down the street to the tower because they have not been back in so long. I'm glad to be back once you leave for a mission. It's exciting to be coming back home once the mission is complete. You really start to miss this place, it's really peaceful, Hayate says to his team, continuing to walk with them to the Hokage Tower. I know what you mean, we have never really been gone from Konoha for so long, it is our home, but we became ninjas so that we could protect our home and everyone within its walls, so that they can live in peace without fear, Miko replied, continuing to walk beside Jin and Hayate while their sensei went ahead to the tower. They were still looking around, but then realizing that they should now hurry to the Hokage Tower to report before she got pissed and started to use them for target practice once again. We got to hurry, Jin shouts, starting to run forward faster to the tower, with Hayate and Miko running faster as well to get to the tower sooner. Once they reached the Hokage Tower, they ran up the stairs as fast as possible and ran to the Hokage's door and started to knock. Come in, Sandame said from behind the door. Team C opened the door once they had permission and walked in, closing the door behind them. What took you guys so long? Were you missing the village that much, and maybe you were also missing my reflex training, and if that is the case, I think we should do that all day tomorrow, she says, smiling evilly to Team 6, of who were seating bullets because of what their sensei implied. So be prepared for the worst, just in case, she says, vanishing in a swirl of leaves, letting them think on what he said. After Team 6 watched their sensei vanish, leaving them there, they turned back to facing the Hokage again. Team 6, you will be getting a new mission in 3 days to give you a little break from doing so many mission, so you're dismissed, the Sandame said to Team 6, who turned around and walked out of the tower talking to each other. I'm going home guys, see you tomorrow, Jin says, running off down the street heading home, while Hayate and Miko continued to talk for a bit, before Miko had to go as well. I guess I should head home as well, Hayate thought, running to his house because the sun was beginning to go down and his parents were expecting him home soon from the mission. Naruto. After Naruto finished working with his sword once again, he went to the center of the training ground to practice Shushin. He picked it up when watching a Chunin ninja practice it in the training ground right next to this one. Where hold I appear at? Naruto asked himself, looking around the training ground, deciding to Shushin in front of a tree that was a good 30 feet away. Starting to perform the hand seals, he took a deep breath. I hope this works, Naruto whispered to himself, vanishing from sight, appearing about an inch in front of the tree, making him smash his head into the tree, making him fall back unconscious from the hit. Around an hour later, Naruto woke up, slowly standing still in pain from the impact with tree. Damn, that hurt, Naruto thought, leaning on the tree for a moment to get the dizziness to go away. Naruto being Naruto, he walked back to the center of the clearing again to try it one more time, trying to visualize himself a couple of feet away from the tree this time. This time when he made the hand signs and vanished, he appeared a couple feet in front of the tree. He jumped for joy after. Once he completed Shushin, he started to practice the Academy 3 jutsu, which were Henge, Kawari, and Bunshin, but not being able to do the Bunshin but completing the other 2 jutsus perfectly, just like before. Even after I learned tree walking and water walking with Kakashi sensei, I am still not able to make a good enough Bunshin to pass the graduation test, Naruto said to himself while sitting down and began to ponder if he could learn a different clone technique to pass the test with. I will ask Gigi tomorrow if I can learn a different clone technique for the test, Naruto thought, determined to get a clone jutsu down before the graduation test next week. Getting up, Naruto got back to work on his kenjutsu, because it will be his main skill in battle besides the fuinjutsu he started learning about. Naruto walked up to a new training dummy that he didn't slice up yet. Unsheathing his sword, he began a dance of majestic sword play on the dummy. Once the dummy was cut up enough, and when he thought his kenjutsu didn't need no more practice that night, he began his trek back to the village, sheathing his sword back in its holster, leaving the training ground. Naruto ran to the main street of Konoha from the training ground while staring up at the stars in the sky as he went, but when he tilted his head forward to look back in front of him, he spotted a mysterious guy climbing out the window of the Hokage tower and started rushing down the street he was on. So Naruto dove into a alleyway to the right, looking out from the shadows to watch the guy go by. The guy runs right past the entrance of the alleyway, making Naruto's eyes widen at the type of forehead protector the ninja that ran past had on, and one of the scrolls from Gigi's office he saw one time. No way, that headband was from Iwa. What is an Iwa ninja doing in Konoha, besides taking that scroll from the tower? Naruto thought, exiting the alleyway and started to follow the Iwa ninja down the street. The Iwa ninja turns off the main road, running into a forest further down a side road. Naruto notices that Iwa ninja just entered training ground 3. Naruto didn't know why he would go though there, but following anyway. I can't let him get away with that scroll, no one knows it was taken, so I have to get it back, Naruto thought, adding chakra to his legs to catch up to the Iwa ninja, while he thought of a plan to make sure he got the scroll back. Once Naruto exited out the back of the forest of training ground 3, he saw the Iwa ninja start using chakra in the bottoms of his feet and legs, getting ready to jump over the wall of Konoha when he got closer. I have to wait for the best moment, and that is when he is already in the air. Then I will Kawari myself with the scroll, Naruto thought, waiting for the right moment to come. When the Iwa ninja jumped up, getting closer to the top of the wall, Naruto appeared on the Iwa ninja's back, making the scroll disappear out of view. Noticing the weight change on his back after Naruto appeared on his back in replace of the scroll, Naruto had no choice but to jump off the ninja and run back into the forest while picking up the scroll off the ground and attaching it to his back like his sword. The Iowa ninja got pissed at being fooled by a little kid, so he jumped back down to the ground. "Get back here, you brat!" the Iowa ninja shouted, running back into the forest after Naruto, in which they came. Naruto saw the ninja catching up to him, so Naruto started to pump chakra to his legs and started to pick up speed. Naruto got faster, but the Iowa ninja was still catching up to him, but much more slowly now though. When Naruto shot past a big tree close to the entrance of the forest, Naruto worried with a branch 20 feet away to get some distance between him and the Iowa ninja who just appeared where he was standing moments ago. "Brat, I am going to kill you nice and slow for making me be here longer in this dump than I had to," the Iowa ninja said, pulling out a kunai and rushing forward at Naruto, who stayed back knowing that the Iowa ninja didn't think much of him. So Naruto grabbed a kunai, wrapping it in an exploding tag. Naruto drew 6 more plain kunai to mask the exploding one. Naruto threw them at the charging Iowa ninja. "Take this, you pig-headed, ugly-ass bastard," Naruto shouted, throwing the kunai slower than he usually would to make the ninja believe that he sucked real badly. "Is this it? You suck even for an academy student. You should not become a ninja if you get the chance, because I'm going to kill you," the Iowa ninja said, stopping and takes a step to the side to let 3 of the kunai pass by. While he deflected 3 more, he lets the last kunai stick in the ground in front of him, believing it to be bad aim from the kid. "That was pathetic. Iowa genin and even Iowa Academy students could take you out in one hit," Iowa ninja taunted Naruto while Naruto just looked on, thinking that the guy must be really stupid. "You don't realize that I am barely trying, or that I am better than I put myself out to be. I mean, come on, I am not retarded, but I think you are," Naruto says, pointing to the kunai in front of the Iowa ninja, making him look down to see an exploding tag on the kunai in front of him. His eyes widened, realizing the danger he is in. He takes a step back right when the tag went off right in front of him, killing him instantly. The Iowa ninja's body fell to the ground, missing part of his lower body. Also, the burn marks were over 50% of the ninja's body, spreading out onto the grassy area from around the body. Naruto turned away, looking disgusted with how the body looked. The burn marks were all over and the guts were spilling out from the body, but nonetheless Naruto picked up the scroll, attaching it to his back while grabbing the shirt of the dead ninja, starting to drag the body to the Hokage tower, knowing the body was too heavy to carry, but he had to tell Gigi about the incident that happened here. Naruto started to jog once hitting the main street of Konoha because he did not want many to see him dragging a dead body around. He caught sight of ninja going out in different directions once reaching the stairs to the Hokage building, and walking up them he reached the Hokage's door with the dead body behind him. Before Naruto could knock on the door, he spotted the secretary jump up and run out of the building after seeing him with the dead body behind him. Naruto just shrugs his shoulders, turning to face the door again. Naruto knocked on the door. Being told to enter, he entered the office, dragging the body in with him while shutting the door behind him. Once the Sandaime spotted him and the body, he jumped up and ran up to Naruto. "Are you okay, Naruto?" Sandaime asked, looking over Naruto for any injuries on Naruto from the fight, he presumed. "I'm okay, Gigi." The Iowa ninja didn't stand a chance. He didn't realize I am better than what I was showing, so he underestimated me. That's why he went boom, but I didn't think he would fall for it though. Not like that anyway, Naruto explained to the Sandaime, who looked at Naruto impressed by him because defeated a Chunin. Although Naruto was underestimated, it still was pretty good for an academy student. "What should I do with this guy?" Naruto asks the Sandaime, innocently pulling the body out in front of him, making the Sandaime call out Tiger from the corner of the room to dispose of the body. Tiger appeared, hauling the body up, then vanishing. Once the body vanished with Tiger, the Sandaime led Naruto to a chair in front of his desk, letting Naruto sit down while he walked back around his desk and sat down himself to get comfortable. "Are you okay, Naruto? That type of killing looked pretty bad," the Sandaime said, clearly concerned for Naruto and his mental state. "Yeah, I'm fine, Gigi." I had no choice but to kill him. If I didn't kill him, he would have killed me and got away. Also, he would have caught me if I tried to run, he was too fast. So I thought I might as well save the scroll and take him out for the good of the village. Naruto said, emotionless, cause the end result of the body looked horrible once the explosion had ended, and he didn't want the Sandaime to worry about him. Okay Naruto, but if you ever need to talk, you know I'm here for you, Sandaime says to Naruto, making sure Naruto understood that he is not alone, making him smile. I know Gigi, you're the best, Naruto says, jumping over the Sandame's desk, giving him a big hug for helping him so much. After the hug, Naruto got back in his chair and sat down, taking the scroll of his back, placing it in the Sandame's desk for him to take back. Is this the scroll that got taken from here? Sandaime asked Naruto, who just nodded to the question. Then hold up a second while I go put this back and get something for you that you will find useful, Sandaime says. The Sandaime got up, taking the scroll that Naruto brought back with him to the back storage scroll room, placing it in the room among the others while picking up another scroll that read Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, and walked out of the room with a smaller scroll in hand, while walking back to his desk, sitting back down. For your efforts of receiving that scroll from that Iowa ninja, you are getting a B rank mission pay. Along with you get to learn the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu from this scroll here, but you have to return it when you're done learning it. Okay Naruto, Sandaime says, reaching inside his desk, pulling out an envelope. Really? I can't believe it. How did you know I couldn't do regular Bunshin? Naruto asks, giddy with excitement to learn it. I watch sometimes to make sure you're not hurt, and I found out that you had too much chakra to do a regular Bunshin when you were training the one time, though I couldn't just hand you this scroll over without a reason. I got a reason now, Sandaime replied, sliding a little envelope over his desk with the B rank mission money in it, as well as the Kage Bunshin scroll on top of the envelope. Naruto reaches out and picks both up, sliding them into his pocket, deciding then that he needed to stay up all night training to get Kage Bunshin completed soon so that he could concentrate on other things tomorrow. Come talk to me sometimes Naruto, you don't see me that much, Sandaime says. Okay Gigi, I promise. I will come visit once in a while, Naruto says, standing up and walking to the door after being told that Gigi is going to bed, so he opened the office door to leave. Just be careful with that jutsu Naruto. Make sure you read the whole scroll in and out before you try to perform it, Sandaime says, shutting off the office light, following Naruto down the hall to a room, in which the Sandaime stepped into, telling Naruto good night before shutting the door. I got a new jutsu I can train. I'm going to go train now, Naruto thought, walking away from the closed door, heading down the stairs of the Hokage building out into the streets, still seeing random ninja pass by from time to time. Naruto started to pick up speed down the road to go to the training ground fast to learn the Kage Bunshin. He wanted to learn it so bad, but he didn't realize before it was too late and collided with someone in the street, both falling down from the collision. Naruto slowly got up and walked over to the downed person, realizing it to be Yugao. He put his hand out to her to help her up. Sorry about that Yugao, I really wasn't paying any attention to where I was going, Naruto says while Yugao took his hand, getting up off the ground, appreciating the help up from the ground. I remember this happening once before, but this time I guess the positions have switched this time around though, Yugao says, laughing lightly from what happened once again. I guess so. You were the one who helped me up the last time, but what are you doing out here this late into the night? Naruto asked Yugao. I am out here going for a walk. Would you like to join me Naruto? Yugao asked, unsure. Sure Yugao, would you like to take a walk through the park then, since it gives the best view of the sky there? Naruto asks Yugao, looking at her beauty, realizing he was staring, averted his eyes toward a building to the side away from Yugao, trying to extinguish the blush that appeared on his face before she saw it. I don't mind Naruto, it's a really nice night tonight, the full moon is out tonight, Yugao says, looking up at the moon for a moment before grabbing Naruto's hand and started to lead him to the park. They were walking through the park, just enjoying the night and just the night time in general because of the stars being out. After they walked around for a bit, they laid in the grass to get a better view of the stars. We're being placed onto teams in a week. If we pass the graduation test though, are you ready for the test, Naruto? Yugao asks. Yeah, I'm ready, Yugao. I am going to pass for sure and you will too. You are one of the best students at the academy, Naruto says, making Yugao blush from his compliment. They both stayed quiet for a bit, deciding just to relax next to each other under the stars. Yugao, I hope that we will end up being on the same team. You and Neo would make a really good team together, Naruto says to Yugo, who turned her head towards him to answer. We would be the best team out of them all. Our skills and our friendship would make the team great, Yugao replied, turning her head back again to face the shining sky. Naruto just nods to Yugao's answer, staying silent, thinking of a lot of things that are on his mind, one of them being Yugao herself. Hey Naruto, can I ask you something, Naruto? Yugao asks with a blush on her face. Sure, Yugao, what's up? Naruto asks, tilting his head to the right to look at her. Yugao takes a couple of seconds to ask, unsure if she should ask Naruto or not. I kind of like this boy Hayate, but I am not sure of how to go about it. I mean, I really like him and all. I want to tell him I like him since I have been talking to him these last 2 weeks, Yugao asks Naruto, catching him off guard. Naruto, who on the inside was in turmoil because he just found out the girl he liked has a crush on Hayate, one of the people he liked out of the entire village. He isn't a bad person and he wants Yugao to be happy, so he gave her a reasonable answer, so he turned further towards her. You should tell him how you feel. He is a good person and won't hurt you. I knew him from 2 years ago, so go for it. Tell him how you feel when you're ready to tell him, Naruto says, hurting inside from what he just said because he really likes Yugao, not showing much of these emotions on the outside because he didn't want her to worry about him. Do you really think so, Naruto? Do you really think I should try? I really like him and don't want to be turned down by him, Yugao says, defectively lowering her head a little. Don't worry about it, Yugao-chan, you are very beautiful. He would have to be an idiot to turn you down, so don't worry about it so much, just think of the positives that could come about from it, Naruto says, trying to hide his sadness, standing up, having to get out of there before tears start to fall from his eyes. Thank you, Naruto, a happy Yugao says, jumping up to her feet and hugging Naruto like crazy, but the hug didn't last too long before Naruto pulled away from her, making Yugao just stand there confused. I got to go, Yugao. I'll see you tomorrow, Naruto says, running off, unsure of why he felt this much pain. See you tomorrow, Yugao says, waving at him before Shita left, but heading home to get some sleep, while Naruto ran out of the park to the front gates of Konoha and out into the forest a good distance away before leaning up against a tree, sliding down into a sitting position, beginning to cry. Once his crying slowed down, he heard a rustling coming from a couple trees and bushes further in. He started to hear laughing before he passed out. Naruto appeared in a sewer-like area, wondering what was going on, before a giant cage with a seal on it appeared before him, with a creature with glowing red eyes came to the bars of the cage. You worthless flesh bag, why are you crying? You are making yourself look weak and you are making me look weak, the fox-like creature growled out from inside the cage. Who are you, and what are you, and how did you get in there? Naruto says to it, standing up slowly, feeling very intimidated by the very large creature in front of him. I am the great Kyuubi no Yoko and you will respect me, boy, Kyuubi says, unleashing some of its red chakra to try and scare Naruto. Naruto, though, stood deviant through the ordeal of the killing intent that is being sent his way. Where is this though, and why are you trapped? I thought you were killed by the Yondaime Hokage, Naruto says to the Kyuubi, walking closer to the cage to get a better look at the Kyuubi. A human can't defeat me. I am a huge mass of chakra without complete form. The reason that you are here with me right now is because this is your mind. The Yondaime sealed me inside, that is why you have massive amounts of chakra, the Kyuubi explained. Naruto's eyes widened from this little bit of information, before taking a step back from the cage. You're lying, Naruto shouts out childishly, not wishing to think that the Kyuubi is inside of him. It's true, you little whelp. This damn seal keeps me from getting out. And if you need proof, push chakra out of your body and look at your stomach. Once you leave here, a seal shall appear, the Kyuubi says, smashing into the bars to prove his point and at the same time trying to get out. So that's why civilians and some ninja keep trying to kill me. They think I am you and that you're still alive, Naruto says, knowing that he himself is the only one keeping the Kyuubi at bay from ripping Konoha apart, but the civilians think otherwise. I'm going to make a deal with you a couple weeks from now, but first I am going to adjust your chakra coils so that it can handle my part of the deal. I am going to propose a plan to you, human. Now get out of here so I can get to work and also to get some sleep. Just don't die. If you die, I die, so I won't let you. If you want to prove to Konoha how strong you are, then get stronger. Maybe then even I may acknowledge you, the Kyuubi says before forcing Naruto out. Naruto woke up wondering about the deal the Kyuubi was talking about, realizing he is in the same place before he passed out, so he stood up and pulled up his shirt, pushing chakra out of his body while a very complex seal appeared on his stomach. Mesmerized by the seal, he then stopped pushing chakra into the seal while pulling his shirt back on all the way. Look what we have here, a little boy wandering the forest by himself. We should show him why he shouldn't be doing this, some guy said from a tree line 50 feet away. Naruto looked up, seeing about 10 guys coming out of the tree line with little daggers, probably wanting to kill him. You guys should leave before you regret your decision of coming any closer, Naruto says, unsheathing his sword from out of the holster off his back, getting into a half-relaxed stance. This little brat thinks he can take all of us on and win. Come on boys, let's show this kid who he is dealing with, one of the bandits said, while most of them started to chuckle. Once they were done, they charged forward with the intent to kill him in cold blood. When the first three came upon him, Naruto jumped up swinging his sword, beheading the first. Then he turned in mid-air and kicked the second in the shin, sending him back a bit. Once Naruto landed, he ducked under a stab from the third coming up and plunging his sword through the third's chest, ripping it out, while the second charged him from behind again, making Naruto jump up and spin kicked him in the side of the head, knocking that bandit out cold. After that bandit fell, he spun around quickly, slashing a deep gash across another, making that bandit drop down dead. Naruto starts taking them down one by one, showing no mercy because he knows he wouldn't get none. When the last one came up, Naruto took his legs out, jumping on top of the bandit, plunging his sword straight down into the heart of the last of the bandits that attacked him before jumping off, walking away from the dead bodies while taking a cloth out, wiping the blood off. After he was done cleaning the blade, he sheathed it while beginning to run back to Konoha. Once he passed the gates of Konoha heading in, he headed to Training Ground 7 to train for a while to get his mind off of many things right now. He entered the grounds, laying his sword on the ground, pulling out the Kage Bunshin scroll and began to read it. The Kage Bunshin is a solid clone jutsu able to obtain memories for the original. You can also use these clones to gain knowledge for you, but making too many of them could kill you or cause mental brain damage that can't be reversed, so be careful when using it. Naruto read the scroll to himself, rolling it back up when he had the hand seals memorized, and began training to learn this jutsu. 4 hours later, Naruto could be seen standing in the middle of about 100 copies of himself before being dispelled, leaving him being the only one left in the field. Yes, I finally learned it. This will come in very handy with certain missions and my training, Naruto thought, ecstatic at the possibilities of the Kage Bunshin. Naruto picked up his sword off the ground and making the hand seals again for the Kage Bunshin. 20 copies appear in front of him. They started to get in the same stance he was in now. Naruto started slashing through them one after another, getting cut up a little bit himself as well. When the last Kage Bunshin dissipated due to being cut in half across its torso, Naruto dropped to the ground exhausted from the training that night. Naruto turned to the sky, noticing the stars were starting to vanish from the sky. The sun's starting to come up. I guess I lost track of time, Naruto softly said to himself, watching the color of the sky change, brightening the sky slightly. I will pass the test next week. I have no choice but to pass, Naruto thought, determined to pass the test. Slowly closing his eyes, not realizing it was happening, falling unconscious in the field peacefully, until Kakashi found him later that day, having to carry Naruto home, grumbling the whole way to Naruto's apartment. Time skip 1 week. I hope Yugao isn't mad at me. I haven't seen her in about a week. I was trying to avoid her to get my emotions in check before I saw her again. Naruto thought, contemplating this while walking down the street to the academy for the test that is being held at the academy. I'm going to pass today, Naruto shouted out, beginning to run so he could get to the academy sooner and to be the first one to arrive. When Naruto arrived at the academy, he rushed right through the academy doors. He ran down the hallway, stopping at a room numbered 27, which has been his classroom for the last 2 years now. He was 6 years old and finally becoming a ninja of the leaf. Naruto slowly opened the door to the classroom, wondering on a couple of things. Seeing no one in the room, he walked up the aisle to the back row of seats and sat down to wait for his senseis and classmates to arrive. So Naruto pulled out his intermediate Fuinjutsu Seals book and began to read while time began to tick by. About an hour later, the doors to the classroom opened up and in walked Asuhi and Matsu Sensei, closing the door behind them as they walked to the desk and placed their folders down on the desk. Naruto closed his book and set it down on the desk for a bit. "Hey senseis, what took you guys so long?" Naruto shouted out jokingly, trying to get a rise out of them. Matsu and Asuhi turned toward the voice and caught Naruto sitting in the back row in high heat already. "What do you mean, Naruto? We are right on time, you're just really early," Matsu said, smiling at the 6-year-old who joined their class 2 years ago. "I thought I would get here early because it is one of the last days I will see this class," Naruto replied sadly, but still happy of becoming a ninja of the leaf in about an hour when they begin the test. "We will miss you, Naruto. You have been one hell of a student. Just make sure you pass the graduation test," Asuhi sensei says to a smirking Naruto. "I will, sensei. The test will be no problem. I'll blow through it and before you know it I will already be a chunin," Naruto says, pumping his fist into the air with determination evident in the way Naruto said it. "Well then, Naruto, good luck. Me and Asuhi are going to be the ones to give you guys the test, so show us what you got," Matsu says, walking to the back room to prepare for the test. Asuhi just sits down at the desk, starting to complete some paperwork he had received that morning. "Asuhi sensei, I am going to be using a different kind of a bunshin during the test to pass, or do I have to use a regular bunshin?" Naruto asked Asuhi sensei, unsure. Asuhi looked up with a confused look, wondering what Naruto meant. "It's fine, Naruto, but had other clone techniques do you know besides the regular bunshin?" Asuhi asks Naruto. "I know the cage bunshin, and I know it because when a ninja tried to steal from the Hokage tower I caught him off guard and saved the skull, then the Hokage let me learn that clone technique," Naruto says to a wide-eyed Asuhi. "Bekatsu, Naruto knew an A-rank kinjutsu. That's amazing, Naruto. The test should be easy for you then," Asuhi states, getting back to work on his paperwork while Naruto picked up his Fuinjutsu book off the desk and began to read the book till the rest of the class got there. After about 30 minutes of waiting, students started to come into the room. Naruto, although reading his book, was paying attention to all who came into the room until Neo stepped into the room. Naruto waved to Neo to come sit in the back with him. Neo walked up the aisle to the back. When he got there, he sat down and Naruto patted him on the back. "Good to see you, Neo. You ready to pass the graduation test today?" Naruto asks curiously, listening to what his friend has to say about the test. Neo nods, then he put his arm up onto the desk before speaking. "The test is going to be simple, Naruto. You and Yugao and maybe some other students in the class have had most of the requirements to pass this test for a while now," Neo states with much conviction, already pulling out a pencil for the written part of the exam, which was sure to come first. "Yeah, you're right. I had most of the techniques Don needed to pass the test the first year in this class," Naruto says, thinking about his 2 years he was in this class. Neo turned to him, wondering if Naruto finished the clone jutsu that he had trouble with and asked him to help with. They didn't progress much with his help either, so Naruto had let it go for the time being. "So you completed the clone jutsu after all? I thought for sure it would have been impossible, but I guess anything could happen when it comes to you," Neo says, putting his head on the desk tiredly from not getting enough sleep from the night before. I never completed that technique. I got a different clone technique to work, so I don't need that one anymore, Naruto says, happily pulling out a pencil himself and placing it on the desk in front of him. Neo just nods and decided to fall asleep for a bit so he wouldn't be tired for the test completely, and Naruto picked up his book and continued to read until after about 10 minutes when Neo lifted his head up and turned to look at Naruto. Hey Naruto, why were you avoiding Yugao? She seemed kind of pissed that she couldn't find out or sense you anywhere, Neo asked Naruto, who put his book back away before replying. I wasn't avoiding her, I was training this whole week. I guess I lost track of time, Naruto says while Neo looked at Naruto, not really believing what Naruto was saying. Nice lie, but really, why were you avoiding Yugao? She seemed really mad on the outside but looked upset on the inside from you staying away from her, Neo says, concerned. Naruto began trying to think of an excuse to get out of this conversation, but after a couple of seconds just decided to tell his friend the truth. Well, I hung out with her about a week ago and she told me she liked a boy. Yugao said his name was Hayate, so I got a little upset after that and I just tried to stay away from Yugao to try and get my emotions in check, Naruto says, not realizing that Yugao was standing right behind him, who looked mad at first but then gained a sad look on her face. Oh really, why would you get upset if Yugao likes another guy? Neo asked, surprised by Naruto's answer to his question, not really expecting the truth out of Naruto instead of another lie. I don't really know, but it's fine, I would rather she be with him anyway. I got a lot of things I wouldn't want anyone to know about, and also just seeing her happy that day when I told Yugao to go for it and tell him how she felt making me happy that I told her that, Naruto says, still not realizing Yugao was right behind him. Neo looked at Naruto with a tiny smile, knowing that Naruto was in love with Yugao but was still too young to know what love was. Neo looked up, knowing Yugao was there the whole time. Yugao mouthed 3 minutes, which meant she would announce herself then, in which Neo nodded back in response, making sure Naruto didn't see him nod to Yugao. After 3 minutes, Yugao walked forward and pulled out the chair that was on the left side of Naruto, making his eyes widen, not realizing Yugao walked up to them. Hey Yugao, how are you doing? I haven't seen you in a while, Naruto asks Yugao, who just sat down while she turned toward Naruto to answer him. I'm good Naruto, but why are you staying away from me? I usually could find you, but this last week I couldn't, Yugao says, knowing she wasn't going to get the same answer that Neo did, which made her kind of sad. I'm sorry Yugao, I is just really busy training and I lost track of time, but I promise to make it up to you though, Naruto says, trying to get Yugao to smile. Ho looked sad at the moment and he wanted to change that. Really Naruto, you sure that is the reason? There isn't anything else to it? Yuga asked, looking at him in the eyes. Yes, that is the main reason why. I'm sorry, Naruto replied, scratching the back of his head. I guess I is right, I'm not going to be able to get the same answer out of him that Neo got out of him, Yugao thought, looking toward the front of the room for a moment before turning back to Naruto. Okay then, but you better make it up to me for making me worry, Yugao says, pouting. I promise, Naruto says to Yugao. Ho gained a smile back, leaving the sad look to disappear. Naruto, Neo and Yugao continued to talk to each other until Neo fell asleep, leaving Yugao and Naruto to talk till Asuhi-sensei stood up from his desk and walked to the front of the class while looking at them with a stack of papers in his hands. Alright class, it is time for the written test. This test will be 25% of your overall grade. Once this test is through, will all go outside for the taijutsu and accuracy test, which will be another 25% of your grade. Then he'll test you in the back room to see if you have the Academy 3 Jutsu completed, which will be about 50% of your grade. So when I hand all these papers out, only begin when I say begin, Asuhi-sensei explained to them, starting to hand each test out one by one and row by row. Naruto and the rest of the class began to examine the test paper they got when they were all handed out. Begin, Asuhi-sensei shouted, sitting back in his seat behind his desk until the hour is up for the written portion of this test, so he got back to work on his paperwork, hoping to finish within the hour before the kids finished. Naruto and Yugao flew through the test within 10 minutes, but Neo only started after 30 minutes of the testing period had passed because he just woke up. He looked around the room, noticing about half were already done, so he turned to Naruto, who had his head down on the desk relaxing while Yugao is doodling on the back of her paper. "Why didn't you wake me up, you idiot? I wanted to be one of the first people done," Neo whispered angrily to Naruto while beginning to write furiously on his test paper. "You said you were tired, so I let you sleep some more. I knew the test would be easy for you, so I left you to sleep and is going to wake you soon," Naruto says, lifting his head slowly off the desk. After a couple minutes, Neo finished his test, flipping the paper over once done. "Well, you could have still woke me up, it would have made it easier for me," Neo says, laying his head down for a couple of minutes till the test was over. Naruto just nods, seeing Neo go back to sleep, laying his head down as well to relax till time was up and Yugao was still doodling stick figures on her paper. The testing time of an hour just finished, so Asuhi-sensei got up and started to collect all the papers from the students. Once he was done with that, he returned to the front of the class, handing the papers to a random Chunin ninja who left the class to grade them in silence and to see what the scores were. "Come on class, it's time to head outside now for the accuracy and taijutsu test," Matsu says, coming out of the back room with another Chunin net to him while Asuhi walked into the back room to wait for Matsu to finish. The students all got up and started to head out back to the training ground. Once they were outside, they were led to a circle engraved in the ground like a ring by Matsu-sensei. "I'll call you each up one by one to face off against Dane here. All you got to do to pass this test is to stay in the ring for a minute with him to get a perfect score," Matsu says while Dane walked into the far end of the ring and got into a taijutsu stance. Matsu started to call names out one by one, marking down all the kids who passed or failed this part. He wrote each one down on his clipboard. When he called Neo up, Neo got into the ring and lasted the minute, but barely, because he got pushed out of the ring a second after the minute mark had passed by. Neo passed, Matsu says, calling the net few students up. About 1/3 of the students so far passed this part of the test while the others have failed. "Uzumaki Naruto, you're up net," Matsu says, seeing Naruto walk into the ring and got into his stance, which had his left leg out in front of him and his right leg out behind him. Naruto was crouched down like that with his left arm in front of him and his right arm facing behind him, which was the lightning fang style that he came up with when Kakashi was teaching him some things. "I am going to kick your ass," Naruto shouts to the opposing Chunin across from him with a smirk on his face. "We will see about that, Naruto," Dane says, trying to taunt Naruto into charging forward at him, but it did not work as he planned it to. "You may begin," Matsu shouted to the two of them, hearing cheers behind him from Yugao, who was screaming kick his ass and show him who's boss, which got Matsu chucking. After a couple of seconds, Dane realized Naruto would not make the first move, so he charged forward so that he could end it quick so that Naruto could not have the time to react, but he still hid quite a bit back when he came upon Naruto. Dane shot out his right fist to slam it into Naruto's face, but Naruto just ducked under the punch and then he blocked the knee coming for his face. Twisting his body around, he brought up his right leg to kick Dane in the chin. But Dane grabbed Naruto's right ankle, holding it in place, but Naruto was not done. Naruto curved his body, bringing up his left leg, spinning in midair to kick Dane in the side of the head. It connected and sent Dane sprawling onto his back. Dane got up almost right away though after the hit. "Damn, this kid is pretty good. I think he already passed this test, but I will continue anyway," Dane thought, charging Naruto again to take him out. Yugao and Neo cheered when Naruto got the hit on him, knowing that was a good move by Naruto, but some of the students in the class still hated Naruto and thought he wasn't going to pass because of his age. Dane shot forward with a left kick coming for Naruto's right side. Naruto leaned forward into Dane's body though from the hit, getting punched in the face, making Naruto skid to the edge of the ring. "I can't lose," Naruto thought, knowing he only had to stay in the ring 10 more seconds to pass, so Naruto shot forward, changing his tactics up a bit to mess with Dane's mind. When Naruto got close, he thrusted his right fist forward to hit Dane, but he leaned back, which Naruto wanted him to do. So Naruto ducked under the punch sent his way and leaned forward closer to Dane, who was wondering what Naruto intended to do. "I win, sensei," Naruto says, thrusting both arms forward and grabbed the top of Dane's pants and pulled them down, making everyone stop talking, with everyone's eyes widening from what just happened. Dane took 2 steps back, his eyes widened before he met with a punch to the gut, then a kick to the face, which sent Dane skidding across the ground out of the ring. Everyone just stares at Naruto, who just walked out of the ring and walked over to Yugao to stand by her, waiting for the net match to commence. "Winner Uzumaki Naruto," Matsu-sensei says with a sweat drop at how Naruto had won the match. Dane got up, pulling his pants back on, while walking back into the ring, while all the way he kept giving Naruto a glare for what he did. "Really, Naruto?" Yugao asks, looking at Naruto like he was crazy. "Hey, a win is a win, Yugao. We are ninja. Anything we can use against someone should be used to your advantage," Naruto replied while turning to Neo, who gave him a high five for what he did to the Chunin. "At least he won. I hope I get placed on the same team as him and Neo," Yugao thought, looking at Naruto and Neo happily. "Azuki Yugao, it's your turn," Matsu says, seeing Yugao alk slowly to the ring while getting into her taijutsu stance, the Izumi stance, which it was a part of her clan. Dane and Yugao both charged forth, clashing back and forth for most of the minute, making Yugao pass the taijutsu test. "You pass, Yugao. Now we are moving on to the accuracy portion of the test. Please follow me to the target," Matsu announced, walking to the target while the students followed him. Once there, he turned to them and handed each student 5 kunai and 5 shuriken to hit the targets with. Matsu called mostly everyone up. He then started to look down the list on his clipboard at who were the highest scorers in these tests so far. He saw that Yugao, Neo, Naruto and Kenzie were top so far. "Next, Uzumaki Naruto," Matsu says, watching Naruto get in line with the target. "This is so easy," Naruto thought. "Haha. Naruto probably is going to miss. He probably has bad aim. That's why he didn't throw any yet," a random student said, laughing at Naruto. "Let's see you laugh after this," Naruto thought, pissed, taking 1 kunai and aimed it for the target, letting the kunai go earlier than it was supposed to, making it fly right by the student's head, making the student stop laughing, realizing the danger he is in. "Whoops, I missed," Naruto says with a smirk, picking up another kunai and about to throw it at the kid again. "Let it go, Naruto, or you will fail this part of the test," Matsu said, although he was smiling at what Naruto did. Naruto grumbled but turned back to the target nonetheless and began to throw his kunai and shuriken, gaining him both perfect on the accuracy test. Naruto walked back to Neo and Yugao with a smile on his face as they congratulated him. When Yugao's turn came up, she got a perfect score on both kunai and shuriken, making Neo, Naruto and herself the only ones to get a perfect on this part of the test beside Kenzie. "Good job, Yugao. I knew you could do it," Naruto said happily with a blush on his face, though Yugao could tell that he was holding back some pain from before, when she asked him about Hayate. "Thanks, Naruto, that means a lot," Yugao says, smiling slightly with thoughts going through her mind like crazy about Naruto. All the students turned to Matsu, waiting for him to explain on what to do next. Now everyone, since the accuracy test is over, everyone head back inside to the classroom to prepare for the next segment of the test, which, I'll call you into the back room one by one once we are ready to begin, Matsu says, leaving in a swirl of leaves to let them walk back to class on their own. Finally, the jutsu portion. It's one of my favorite parts of being a ninja besides kenjutsu, but they don't have a test for that, Naruto says to Neo and Yugao, who nods to his statement while all three walked into the classroom and sat in their seats in the back row of the room. Kenzie walked up the aisle to them with a smirk on his face. He leans over the desk. Yugao was at once reaching their back row. "Hey cutie, you need to give me a kiss for good luck. I think a kiss from you would help me out quite a bit," Kenzie says to Yugao, cupping her chin, starting to bring Yugao's head closer to him while Naruto's and Neo's eyes widen from this. "No thanks," Yugao says, pulling back away from Kenzie, who brought his other hand forward trying to grope Yugao. I'm going to kill him. Yugao thought about to bring her arm up to slam Kenzie in the face for what he is trying to do. While this encounter is going on, people were already being called into the back room, but they didn't notice. Naruto's hand shot forward and gripped Kenzie's wrist, making Yugao's and Kenny's eyes widen before Kenzie was thrown across the room into the far wall, making Kenzie smash his head off the brick part of the wall, passing out from the hit to the head. I'm going to kill him, Naruto thought, murderously getting up all the way and started to trek forward to the fallen Kenzie, but before he got far, Yugao got up and put a hand on Naruto's arm, making him stop and turn his head slightly to look at Yugao. Please stop, Naruto. Just let it go, it's over, but thank you for sticking up for me, Yugao says, smiling. Okay, I'll stop, but if he does it again I won't stop till he ends up in the hospital, Naruto says to Yugao. That's fine, Naruto, but you wouldn't get the chance he would be there from me sending him there before you got the chance to send him there yourself, Yugao replied, taking her hand off Naruto's arm. The graduation test room door opened and Neo strolled out with a smile on his face up to Naruto and Yugao. I passed, guys. I was right, also this test is easy, so if you don't pass I'll kick your asses really hard, Neo says jokingly. Naruto Uzumaki, it's your turn now, Matsu said, leading Naruto into the back room while Yugao sat back down and started to fidget in her seat, hoping that Naruto passes this test. Don't worry, Yugao, Naruto will be fine, he will pass the test for sure, Neo says, sitting down next to her to comfort her. Naruto. When Naruto entered the room, he was told to stand in front of the long desk in the room until they told him to begin the test. Okay, Naruto, query with something in the room, Matsu says to Naruto. He made the hand seals vanishing from his spot and appearing in Asuha's seat, where Asuhi landed in Naruto's spot, but not upright, but landing on his head, hitting the floor pretty hard. Asuhi stood up and grabbed Naruto from his seat and placed him back onto the floor while sitting back down himself. Well, then Naruto do a henge for us, Matsu says, laughing at what happened to Asuhi. Naruto smiled with an evil grin before performing the hand seals for henge. The whole area was then engulfed in white smoke, completely blocking everyone's view in the room. When the smoke cleared, the whole room was mostly filled by a giant orange-furred fox. Everyone's eyes widened in the room, realizing that this was the Kyuubi no Yoko. They all shot up out of their seats and grabbed a kunai out, leaning up against the back wall, scarred for their lives but willing to give their lives up to protect Konoha. I'm going to roast you guys to a crisp, the giant cubified henge says, sounding just like the demon fox, while the fox brought its mouth right into the face of Dane of Who, which was in the room with Asuhi and Matsu. And one of the Kyuubi's paws was up against Asuhi as the other paw pushed against another random chunin, making them scarred beyond belief with sweat rolling off their foreheads before the room was once again covered in smoke before they heard laughing coming from Naruto, of which was standing in the center of the room. You should have seen your faces. So did I pass the henge part? Naruto asks, laughing while stepping out of the smoke the big henge caused. Asuhi jumped forward and smacked Naruto upside the head for doing what he did. Ow! What was that for? Naruto shouted. That was for scaring us half to death, thinking that the Kyuubi was attacking, Asuhi said, walking back to his desk and sat down. The other chunin did the same, although giving a glare to Naruto now. Last part of the test, Naruto make 3 viable clone and no more surprises, Naruto, Matsu says, shaking his head. Naruto just nod but performed the hand eel for Kage Bunhin no Jutsu. A 10 OLED clone appeared net to him, hawking everyone again, but not Aohiane. Matsu got up and walked around the desk and put his hand on a shoulder of one of the clones, but he also noticed Asuhi wasn't as surprised as he was. Why you are not shocked, Asuhi? Matsu asks, watching Naruto dispel the clones. He asked me if he could do those type of clones instead of regular clones, so I let him, Asuhi replied while Matsu walked back to his seat and sat down again, reaching into his desk pulling out a black headband. Congratulations, Uzumaki Naruto, you are now a genin of the Hidden Leaf Village. Serve us proudly, Matsu announced to Naruto, who shot forward and grabbed the headband out of his hand while tying it to his forehead. Can you call Yugao back for us, Naruto? It's her turn now, Asuhi asks. Naruto nods to him and runs out of the testing room back to the classroom to announce that he passed. Naruto entered the classroom, most eyes in the room who were still there turned toward him. I passed, Naruto shouted, running in and ran right up to Neo, giving him a hug, who returned it. Then Naruto turned to Yugao and gave her a big hug as well, which she returned, holding the hug longer than they thought they would. When Naruto realized he was still hugging her, Yugao also realized this, blushing crimson. Naruto pulled back with a blush on his face as well for what he did. Hee. Sorry Yugao, I got really excited, Naruto says, scratching the back of his head. It's okay Naruto, I didn't mind that you hugged me, Yugao says, looking away slightly with a light blush still adorning her cheeks. Okay then, but it's your turn. No Yugao, they told me to tell you to head on in, Naruto said to Yugao, while she runs out of the room into the testing room to become a ninja. You probably stole it, you wannabe. You couldn't have passed, Kenny says, walking up to Naruto with a sneer on his face. Neo just stood there to see what happens so that he could help Naruto if he needed it. Me a wannabe? Hey, then what does that make you? I mean, I threw you into that brick wall over there and you didn't get back up, so that means you're weaker than me, so I wouldn't go about putting nonsense about, Naruto says, taunting Kenzie, who jumped forward at Naruto, throwing a right fist out to hit the blonde in the mouth. Naruto caught the punch aimed for him, sending a punch of his own into Kenzie's gut, doubling him over before punching Kenzie in the mouth, picking him up and threw him into a seat to wait for their senseis to finish up the testing. No, just sit there and be a good boy till Asuhi and Matsu sensei to come in after they finish testing, Naruto says, sitting down in his seat. Neo sat down beside him, both with a grin on their face. About 2 minutes later, Yugao walked back into the room with a high 8 on her forehead. She sat down next to Naruto and Neo. They both congratulated her on the feat of passing the graduation test. So all of us passed, this is great. We may have a chance of us being on the same team together, Naruto says to them, in which they both agreed. They continued to talk until Matsu and Asuhi walked in the door and stood in front of the class. No everyone, this is here your journey begins as a ninja, your career starts. No, go make a name for yourself and become the best ninja you can be. Meet back here tomorrow at 8 o'clock to meet your teammates and sensei, Asuhi and Matsu says to the class together, both vanishing in a swirl of leave together after the speech is given. Kenzie is the first to leave because he needed to go get checked at the hospital for injuries. Naruto got up along with Yugao and Neo, continuing to talk as they walked down the hallway and exiting out the building onto the street. I guess I'll see you guys tomorrow, Yane, Neo says, running off. I got to go to Naruto, but I'll see you tomorrow, Yugao says, giving Naruto a hug, who hugged back. Yugao pulled back out of the hug with a blush on her face, rushing off down the street as Neo did before. Naruto continued to walk down the street until he heard his name being called. He turned and saw Hayate jogging up to him. Hey Naruto, how have you been? Hayate asks Naruto. I have been good, Hayate. I just became a genin a little bit ago, Naruto says, making Hayate's eyes widen seeing Naruto's headband on his forehead. So you're only 6 and already a genin? Damn, you got me beat. You probably tied with Kakashi's and Itachi's graduation record at the academy, Hayate says to Naruto. Really? Naruto asks, more excited than ever, while Hayate chuckles and nods at Naruto's antics. I say go celebrate you becoming a genin, then how about some ramen? I haven't had it in a while, Hayate says. Naruto grabs onto his hand and begin to drag Hayate down the street to the ramen stand. Once there, they flipped open the flap and sat down next to each other so they could eat and talk at the same time. Hey Naruto, how have you been? I haven't seen you in a while. You did not come here for a eek, Ayame says with a stern look. I'm sorry Ayame-ne-chan, I have been really busy, but I would like 3 bowls of ramen please, Naruto asks. Ayame ho nodded and got to work on his and Hayate's order, which he ordered only 1 bowl of chicken ramen for himself. So Naruto ho is all in your class, Hayate asks as he takes a bit of his ramen. Well, the ones I really talk to in class are Neo and Yugao, they're the only ones I can really stand, Naruto replies, making Hayate cough on his food a little from the mention of Yugao's name. Did Yugao-chan and Neo pass as L? Hayate asks Naruto, who did not miss the chan suffix from Hayate. Yeah, they both passed, but why do you call her Yugao-chan? Do you like her? Naruto asks, teasing Hayate, who gained a blush from the comment. I guess you can say that, but I have only known Yugao for 2 weeks so far, I can't just come out and say it to her. Hayate accedes to Naruto, unsure of what to do. So he likes Yugao back. I guess I can help them get together, even though I like Yugao a lot, but I know she likes Hayate, so won't get in the way. I just want Yugao to be happy, Naruto thought, taking a couple bits of his ramen. You should tell her, Hayate, how you feel about her because she likes you too. She told me that she likes you a while back because you're really good friends, Naruto says, patting Hayate on the back, hiding his pain he was feeling. Okay, I will tell her then when I see Yugao again. Thanks, Naruto, Hayate says, waving to Naruto, leaving the ramen stand and heading home because it was getting late. Naruto stayed and finished up his ramen while having a long conversation with Ayame, who was happy that Naruto came for ramen today. Naruto got off his stool, dropping money on the counter, and turned to leave. See you, Naruto-kun. You better come by sooner this time, Ayame shouts to Naruto as he exited the ramen stand while waving back at Ayame to show that he had heard. I will, Ayame-ne-chan, Naruto shouted back, making Ayame smile, while continuing to walk down the main road. Naruto looked up towards the sky, seeing the stars out. I wish you liked me, Yugao-chan. Maybe I still have a chance, but I don't know, Naruto thought, looking up at the stars.